Hello, everyone. I am extremely excited to be sharing my thoughts about maximizing student success through ongoing feedback. My name is Dr. Praneeth Anand, and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of New South Wales Business School here in Sydney. So what do we mean by student success in the first place? Just to quote some prominent authors around assessment and feedback, students can often escape the effects of bad teaching, but they cannot escape the effects of bad assessments. And this is by David Bowd. He talked about this in some of his papers and presentations way back in 1995. And what do we mean by that is basically, if you think about the way in which students have attended, or more in some cases not attended lectures, it's just their frustration with the lectures, etc. But students cannot escape assessment tasks. So if you design an assessment task, students cannot escape the bad design of assessments. They have to engage with the assessments, whether they like it or not. Assessments and feedback are very closely tied in together as well. They're intricately connected. Feedback on assessments, therefore, should help students improve their performance in assessments. Success in assessments is what defines student success. So if students do well in assessments, therefore the students do well in the course as well, right? So no matter what we do with our assessments, we must ensure we provide feedback to the students that they can learn from that experiences as well. So it's very, very important that we provide timely feedback. Quite often what happens is we give students feedback, and in some cases, the only feedback that the students receive is something like pass or fail, which is fine for many students, for example, whether they passed or failed, for example, but it doesn't help them improve the work. But also, quite often we provide feedback to students after they've completed the work. So once they've completed the work, they submit the assignment to us, we give them a mark, and then we give them a little bit of feedback in terms of how can they improve. For many students, that's already too late because they've already got a grade. They've already moved on to a different assignment or a different course or a different subject of their study. So for many students, that really becomes almost meaningless. So assessments without feedback, therefore, is really meaningless. And some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today is about how can we provide feedback to students before they submit their work, right? So that they can maximize the marks that they get for that particular assignment, and therefore for the course that they're studying with you there and then. So I've designed a course. Well, in fact, doesn't matter which course I teach, which subjects I teach. Most of the courses are designed in a very, very similar sort of way. So for example, and let me just bring up my annotation. Okay. So most of my courses are, as I mentioned, designed in a very, very similar sort of way. So basically, I start off with, no matter what it is, weekly activities or in many cases assignments, because that's the main thing that the students are quite often focused on. Students are generally focused on assignments. They're pragmatic. They've got a limited amount of time, a limited amount of resources, so they really want to maximize the amount of mark that they get in a particular subject. So they're very focused on assignments. But it doesn't matter, no matter what activity you do, etc. It's important to give students feedback so that they know how they're performing, they know how they're doing. So most of the time, I start off with an assignment. For example, in this case, it's analyzing an existing learning space in the subject that I was teaching not long ago. And the way in which I want the students to engage with that particular task is I give them readings, right? I start off with some readings that I give them. So readings about what they need to do, readings about how they can understand the topics, for example, look at some other examples from past students, etc. And then I then facilitate. Now, the class that I'm talking about here is actually a hybrid class. I've got some students who are online, and then we've got some students who are face-to-face as well. So in class, I then facilitate a discussion about the task as well. So rather than just give the task, here it is, here's your assignment, go and figure that out kind of thing, we actually spend a considerable amount, a significant amount of time in class talking about that assessment task. So I discuss that assessment task. What does it mean? What do they need to do, etc. I expect students to ask me lots of questions about that as well. And there's many students always ask me questions as well. And this is both online and face-to-face classes as well. As part of that, I also introduce them to the rubric. So the rubric or marking guide, etc. So I introduce them to the rubric at the same time as well. So the students get the task, right? We have a discussion about the task, and then we discuss the rubric. This is how I'm going to mark. So it's very, very transparent. Here's the thing that I want you to do. This is what it means, and this is how I'm going to mark that, right? But it's very, very important that we have a discussion about the rubric as well. So it's not just a matter of me saying, okay, here's the rubric, this is what the expectation is. Let's have a chat about it. What do you understand about that as well? And the reason for that is mainly, quite often when we present a rubric, it's my understanding about what the expectations are, and we quite often ignore what the students understand from the rubric. So we then have a really, really good synchronous and asynchronous discussion about the rubric as well. Right, so we've got assessment tasks. We've discussed what the task is about. We've discussed the rubric as well, and this is the key part of that. We then also, as part of the discussion, we capture that at some place, right? I mean, the tool that I use is Padlet, but it doesn't matter what tool you use. You could even use Microsoft Word as long as it's collaborative. So on this Padlet, in my case here, we record all the discussions that we've had about the rubric. That goes and sits in the Padlet, right? So the rubric that we have discussed in class comes and sits inside the Padlet, and it becomes an evolving document. And the reason for that is students talk about the rubric, they talk about the expectations, they talk about the different parts of the rubric, and then they write the comments. And quite often, they put questions in there about the rubric, and it gives me, but also other students, an opportunity to then comment about that. Oh no, I don't think this is what it's meant by that, or this is what it means. I go in, my tutors go in, have a look at the rubric, have a look at the Padlet, and we add to that. So over a period of time, that becomes a real live document where the students totally understand what the expectations is about the assignment from the teachers like myself, but amongst themselves as well. So over a period of time, they develop a very, very good, robust, very interesting, deep understanding about expectations. Once we've gone through all of that, the students continue to work on their assignments. They start working on their assignments. They work on their on their tasks. But while they're doing that, I then also create an individual feedback journal. So again, using our learning management system, the students can ask me and the tutors questions. And quite often what happens is they go off and do a little bit of research, and then they probably come across a confusion. Maybe they don't understand something. So they put that in the individual journal. And both myself and my tutors, depending on how we allocate the task, we jump into the individual journal at regular points in time, and then we give students feedback. Okay, you're on the right track. Maybe you're not on the right track. Can I suggest you have a look at this part of the rubric so that you can realign your thinking in terms of how you're going to put your task together, etc. And that goes on a weekly basis, continuously, until the students are ready to submit the assignment. So by the time the students are ready to submit the assignment, they've had lots of discussions with myself, with my tutors, about the assignment, about the expectations. So there's very little confusion about what they're doing, because we've been giving them feedback very, very regularly. The expectations is very, very clear. Just before they submit the assignment, there's one last thing that they have to do. They have to do a self-grading. They have to grade their own selves using the rubric that we have already discussed. So using the rubric that we've already discussed, they have to grade themselves. And the reason for that is just a quick quality check. Before they submit the work, they do a quick quality check. They check whether their work was appropriate enough, it meets the expectations or not, does it meet the expected criteria or not. Quite often, and I'll show you a little bit later on, quite often the feedback that we get from the students is that this was a really good opportunity for them to go back and improve the work a little bit. And many students do that as well. So it's very, very important that, say, okay, we sort of force the students to, okay, we've talked about the assignment, we've talked about the expectations. Now you've completed your assignment and you're ready to submit your assignment. But hey, we'd like you to have one last look again, just in case you can improve your work. And if you can improve your work, you're more likely to improve your grade in that assignment as well. So the students do that, and then they submit their work. Now the students submit the work, and one of the things that we have noticed is, so we mark the students using exactly the same rubric, and quite often, most of the time, the marks that the students award themselves are actually a little bit lower than what we as markers award the students as well, which we found a little bit surprising, because we thought the students would be marking themselves much more highly, but they were a lot more harsher on themselves than we were. So anyway, the marks were quite good, but when there is a difference between, or a significant difference between the student's mark and the teacher's mark, then that gives us an excellent opportunity to have a feedback discussion. So rather than just giving general feedback, you could improve here, you could improve there, or you haven't done very well in this aspect, or you have done really well in that aspect, kind of thing. We actually have a discussion about why my mark was different to your mark, right? So it gives an opportunity for a very, very healthy conversation about feedback, about the marks that the students get. We use that feedback then the students start working on the second assignment. The second assignment is basically very, very closely aligned to the first assignment as well. So whatever feedback that the students get for the first assignment, they are able to actually apply it in the second assignment, right? So they apply it in the second assignment. Now, at the end of the semester, for example, once they've completed everything, because they've gone through all this process, students have learned significant amount of work, because we've been giving them feedback constantly. We've been sort of engaging with them constantly. They've been asking for feedback. We've been giving feedback on a regular basis. So we conducted an evaluation of our initiative. Oops, sorry. So we conducted an evaluation of our work once we had done all the work, but we didn't wait for the evaluation at the end of the semester. We conducted evaluation throughout our semester. So for example, we obtained regular feedback from the students throughout the semester via the learning management system. So as we were teaching the course, we were getting feedback from the students, and most of the time this particular feedback was very informal. It was very ad hoc, but it was still very, very rich and very valuable. We also had quite structured feedback during our mid-semester. We sent them an anonymous survey that the students could fill online. At the end of the semester, we collected information from the students about their experiences as well. And the university conducted its own semester-wide, university-wide end of semester feedback as well. We also looked at the results of our students, our cohort of students compared to previous cohorts of students, but also looked at compared the quality of the work that the students were submitting. We were able to obtain a retrospective ethics approval from our university to analyze all that work and then to publish that as well. So the feedback that we got was very, very positive. Students were commenting, and these are the actual students' comments. Students were commenting that they enjoyed the material, that the breakout classes in the Zoom sessions were very, very informative and enjoyable. The structure was very well structured and easy to follow. Bits of prompts along the way was great. It was very engaging unit that really got me thinking deeply about inclusive, effective learning environments. I really enjoyed engaging in this unit. The lecturer was very helpful and attentive, providing quality activities, content, and feedback. I actually enjoyed the process of awarding myself a mark. That's the last bit that we did before the students submitted the work. And some students actually enjoyed that. It wasn't easy for many students, but they actually enjoyed the process. It encouraged me to really engage with assessment critically and reflect criteria and reflect critically. It was very relaxed and supportive as well. So because once the students got into the habit of that feedback dialogue with us, it became a very comfortable environment for all students. We also analyzed the work as well, and we found that the marks had improved, not significantly, but what had happened was rather than the top level marks going up, we found that more students were getting higher marks as well, which was quite good. And the quality of the work was really, really good. The students were much more reflective in the submission as well. And these are just some of the references that we use to inform our practice, and most of them is coming from Agostino, Baud, Phil Dawson, and O'Donovan as well. And on that note, I'm gonna stop over there, and I'd like to say thank you very much for listening to me and watching my recording. Thank you.